By all means, you can do it, right? Your interview session anyway, so it's gonna make more sense if you do. Um, okay, so here we are for this mock interview round, okay? And we have a couple of observers. यहाँ पे we have a batch that is in progress right now, that is going to start up their business analysis activities. We have persons from a batch that completed like in December last year, and then we have people from another batch which completed in January itself. So three batches combined. A lot of you are in preparation stage, so I thought of kind of taking up this call just to make sure that you guys are aware of what you need to do, and at the same time, we can kind of go through a couple of questions, mock interviews, and so on and so forth. Okay. So just as a general guideline, I'd like to remind कि I'm going to ask a couple of questions. All right. And जो भी प्रिपेयर करके आए हो आप, राइट, एंड दिस इज स्पेशली सो इफ करंट बैच पीपल डोंट इवन वरी अबाउट इट, बट like Devang, Danish, Harjeet, right, Karan, you guys, if you are able to answer this question, then go ahead and answer it. A couple of things to keep in mind is that when you answer a question, keep it short, keep it less than 90 seconds. Use the star method, मतलब कि एक example दो, right? You have your projects, you have your resumes, so to say. um, use user stories or use examples from that scenarios. At the same time, try and read the question first before answering. Okay, that is important in interview. And at the same time, you have to understand this, that एक इंटरव्यू होता क्या है, ठीक है, सबसे पहले ये बात समझो. Because not a lot of people teach us कि इंटरव्यू क्या होता है in the first place, right? Everybody has just kind of accepted कि हाँ इंटरव्यू होता है, and then everybody just goes and gives out interviews. But नहीं, इसके पीछे एक साइंस है. If you think about an interview, it is nothing but let's talk about what happens before the interview. Huh? कि you applied to a position, right? You have gone through recruiter rounds. You have spoken to somebody on the phone, right? There is an audio call, probably, maybe a video call with the recruiter. But until this point, the hiring manager who's going to actually make the decision, right? Who gives us an interview call to you. Until this point, you for the hiring manager are nothing but a piece of paper, and your portfolio and your profile and whatnot are nothing but a piece of paper. The hiring manager doesn't really know how do you look like. They don't know how do you sound like. So interview is basically your place to come together, you and the hiring manager, and make friends basically. ऐसा समझ लो, right? It is not a test of your skills. It is not a viva of sorts, right? That we already are familiar with in our school and college days. It is not something that will make or break your life, right? It is just an opportunity to showcase yourself and be friends with the hiring manager. That's what I look at when I look at interviews, right? Okay. For me, for an experienced BA, interviews are nothing but just another meeting. ठीक है, तो कुछ भी पहन के चले जाओ. As a matter of fact, I don't even dress up for interviews, right? It's like t-shirt हो गया, shirt हो गया, जो भी कुछ है. कुछ भी पहन के चले जाओ. You don't need to formally dress up. I'm just giving you examples, right? कि for me it's just another meeting. It's not like a special occasion of sorts. तो नर्वस होने की जरूरत नहीं इंटरव्यू में. Speak to your heart's content. um, you have to realize this fact that we are in a profession, especially the business analysis profession, right? We are in a profession where the practice of business analysis differs from organization to organization. It's not the same one company to a different company, right? So what could be right in one organization could be terribly wrong in the other, and vice versa. So if I ask you a question, for example, how do you write your user stories? And if you tell me that, okay, my style of writing user stories is I create a ticket in Jira, I write the summary, I write the title, I write the acceptance criteria, I write the specification by example, I attach UML diagrams or Figma designs if you're building UI screens, right? Any risk or compliance related criteria per se. And then I make sure that I have definition of ready setup and so on and so forth. Um, that may be right in your organization. For my organization, that could be a lot of work in itself. Or for my organization, a lot of things that you just said were just a part of the story, and a lot of things are missing, right? So it could go in either spectrum. Nonetheless, दे आर नॉट जजिंग यू कि क्या ये बंदा 100% ऑफ द आंसर दे सकता है कि नहीं, राइट? Did this guy speak all the 100% of the points that I was looking for? They're not looking for that, right? They're looking for workability. In other words, they're looking for chalability. कि ये बंदा चल सकता है कि नहीं. In other words, कि does this guy have 50%, 60% of what it takes to perform this job? Rest 40% तो हम लोग उसको train कर लेंगे, right? That's what they're looking for. If you do not attempt an answer, that becomes an issue in itself. If you say कि हाँ नहीं पता है, if you blank out, that becomes an issue for itself, right? Because उसमें एक चीज होती है, there is a concept called as conversational threading, ठीक है? Conversational threading means कि अगर you and I, we talk to each other, right? Pretty much the talk starts off as how's your day, how are you, so on and so forth, ठीक है? And then we get straight to the point. अगर आप मेरे को पूछो कि hey how are you, and मैं simply ऐसा ही response दूँ, I'm good, the conversation stops at that point, ठीक है? But अगर आप मेरे को पूछो कि how are you, and if I say that I'm good, just had a few cups of coffee and I made a run to Walmart, so I'm a little bit kind of tied up and just getting to make the most of this time. So there were certain topics that I left in this conversation. For example, Walmart हो गया, for example, groceries हो गया, फिर कुछ भी. I'm just giving an answer. So these topics are nothing but threads that the person can latch onto, जहाँ पे आप conversation और आगे बढ़ा सकते हो, right? So interview is also like the same thing. अब आप मैं कोई क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ कि what's your understanding of agile projects, and you don't say anything or you don't say enough. There were not enough threads for me to latch on to and take this conversation forward. ठीक है? तो फिर उसमें ये होगा कि in that sort of an interview, I'm just going to ask you the list of questions that I have made for myself, and then that's pretty much it, right? So I'm not going to enjoy the conversation. लेकिन अगर मैं क्वेश्चन पूछूं, आप रिस्पॉन्स दो, जैसा आए नहीं आए, वट एवर इट इज, एंड इफ यू गिव मी इनफ थ्रेड्स टू लॉन्च ऑन टू, तो वो थ्रेड से लेके फिर आई कैन आस्क यू इवन मोर फॉलो अप क्वेश्चंस, आई कैन गेट टू नो यू बेटर, राइट? So ये चीज याद रखो. So a couple of things just to summarize what I said is answers 90 seconds or less, concise and precise. Use as much jargons as you can, ठीक है? Not a lot of connector words. क्वेश्चन पूछने के बाद if you want to take 10 seconds worth of time to think about it, by all means do it. At the same time, use the star method, ठीक है? And answer it like a conversation, right? If I ask you a question that what do you understand by agile projects, don't repeat the question. Don't use filler words, so on and so forth, ठीक है? Couple of things to keep in mind. Okay, I think ये तो already आपको interview prep guide में दिया गया था, so you know about this already, but I just wanted to give you an idea कि give you a reminder कि ये भी एक चीज है. Okay, तो शुरू करें, right? I'm going to ask you questions based on the content that we already have. And anybody who wants to pick it up, right? This is an open-ended call. जिसको भी pick up करना है, pick up करके बोल सकते हो, right? ठीक है, तो देवांश से शुरू करता है बिकॉज आई लाइक हिम. देवांश, एक बात बताओ यार. What is your understanding of the Scrum framework?
So what we do basically in Scrum framework is when we write, the user stories in Jira, and when the business analyst is about to complete that user story, by that I mean the title has been written, we have written the acceptance criteria, we have written the preconditions, the trigger point, the post conditions. We have also written, we have also jotted down the process maps, the UML diagrams. We have done documentation analysis. We have shared all the links in the description. After that user story is complete, we move towards the product refinement sessions, where along with the Scrum Master, product owner, we establish the definition of ready followed by definition of done, where we do user story pointing. We establish points to each user story so that development and testing can start. So that is my basic understanding.
Okay. So let's backtrack a little bit, all right? So let's not just move towards Scrum itself. What do you think is the difference between the waterfall framework and the agile framework? Not waterfall method and the agile method per se. Let's track from there.
So according to my opinion, and as I have like 4 years of experience working as a functional business analyst, what I would think is it is just a difference in the mindset, I would say, because in waterfall it is very document heavy analysis, where we start by analyzing business case document. We write functional requirements, business use cases, high level requirements, high level requirements followed by the detail level requirements. Then we'll take it to stakeholders, have the meeting and schedule the sign off sessions. Whereas the agile project, which majorities of organizations are now more inclined towards. It is more granular, where we break down all the user stories. Uh, we develop the project in iterations. So we have sprint backlog, where as a business analyst, I just have to maintain the N+1 or N+2 pace, where I have to only worry about few requirements at once. So it's just in my opinion, difference between the mindset as how we go about doing a waterfall and agile project. But a good and competent BA, it doesn't really matter to them, because as they know what they're doing and they have all the tools that it required to do all the documentation analysis, selecting the elicitation techniques, writing the requirements, the job is pretty easy and basic, and it is fun things to do.
Okay. Anybody wants to attempt the same question? What is the basic difference, or not the basic? Have it your way. What's the difference for you as a BA between waterfall and agile? Okay. Now, why I'm asking this question before anybody takes it away is that this is an actual question asked to me in one of the interviews at United Health Group, okay, UHG. That the question was that Deepak, if I put you in an agile project and a waterfall project at the same time, so as a BA you are handling two different projects at the same time, what would be the difference in your mind while handling requirements for these two projects, right? And a lot of context was provided in terms of that, this is going to be a waterfall and agile side by side. What will be the difference in your mind when you, as a BA, so on and so forth, right? But the long story short, the bottom line of the question is basically this: अगर आप waterfall and agile project दोनों साथ में करो, कर पाओगे या नहीं? That's what the question is about, right? So the answer that I am looking for in this scenario is going to revolve around your past experiences conducting a waterfall project, or your past experiences conducting an agile project. And as a BA, what is the difference for you between these two projects? Like, not the entire project lifecycle. For example, phases of the projects and so on and so forth, right? User stories and BRDs, blah blah. Not really that. As a BA, तुम्हारे लिए क्या difference है, right? For example, one of the differences that you can say that, see, here is how I would start off my answer, right? If this question comes to me, that Deepak, if I put you onto waterfall and agile projects at the same time, how would you handle it? What I would say is that essentially for me as a BA, waterfall or agile are simply methods of execution, right? At the end of the day, we are building software, right? Well, it doesn't matter if you do it with waterfall or agile. For me, if I'm conducting a waterfall project, I will need to start at the business case document level, where I have a business case document prepared. If not, I will attempt at preparing one, having it signed off. That will give me an idea about the high level requirements. And then I will start my elicitation sessions based on the high level requirements to capture detailed. The difference for me is that I'll have to capture all the requirements for the entire project at once. And only then it can go into the next phase, which is your designing. Okay. Whereas if you talk about agile, since it is not requirements heavy upfront, or it doesn't ask for all requirements upfront, I'm only required to capture the high level requirements for the overall project, or the detail level requirements for the overall project at a very high level, right? Just the titles of the requirements, or so to say, just to analyze the scope. And once I've done that, we will formulate MVPs, we will formulate sprints, we will assign tickets to sprints, and then I start my elicitation activity for each and every individual sprint, and then try and maintain the N+2 model. Okay, so as BA, I have pretty much the same work to do in both these execution methods, right? The only difference is that one asks for all requirements upfront, so it is requirements heavy, and second asks for requirements on an ongoing basis, right? That's the only difference for me. From an project execution standpoint, yes, we get MVPs sooner delivered in Agile, whereas Waterfall, the projects are usually lengthy, and we only get to see the final product at the end of the project execution cycle. But that's about the project management as a whole, and not really business analysis. Yep. This is how I would answer. Now, if I put a clock to it, I went roughly some seconds beyond 90-second mark, right? So 1 hour, 1 minute and 30 seconds. Abhi क्यों important है 90 minutes is because um, you are in the age of social media, right? Reels have reduced the attention span to what, like 3 seconds for humans. And us era mein, if you're carrying on to speak for about 90 minutes or more, people will lose their attention, right? People will lose focus, and they will divert elsewhere. Right now, as I speak, most of you are thinking about something else in your brains, right? And that's how things are, right? So in this case, we try and grab attention through vocal emotes, through voice modulations, through expressions, and keeping it as short as we can. Okay. 90 seconds is short nahi kar sakte because then we wouldn't be giving out credible answers, right? Okay. I'm gonna ask another question. I want somebody else to take this away. My question is that how exactly do we do requirements in a waterfall project versus in an agile project? What is the difference? And by difference, I mean either execution of requirements, either elicitation techniques, either elicitation styles, writing requirements, artifacts. As a BA, what is the difference between these two? Who wants to take it up? Yep, somebody take it up, or
Sure.
else I will start picking.
Sir, can I start?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, Harshita, if you want to go
No,
first.
go ahead. You can take
Yeah.
a dig on this. Yeah. After that.
I will try to take a take on this.
Okay.
So one of the key differences that I've noticed is the level of granularity. In Waterfall, we focus from high-level requirements to detail-level requirements. We start with a business case document, which is handed over to the business analyst, and then we start our elicitation process. It might be an interview session or one-to-one brainstorming session or a chat session, depending on what the project is. And then we develop a BRD that has detail level requirements and use cases, a lot of documents in there. And in Agile, it is more collaborative. We start from user stories, then to features. I'm sorry, you start from Epic to user stories and to acceptance criteria. It is a much more collaborative work. And yeah.
Okay. Good attempt. Who wants to try this again?
Can I try, sir?
Sure, go ahead.
So difference in in requirements in waterfall and agile is while in waterfall everything is gathered at once upfront before any development is begin, and in that everything is discussed, documented, then reviewed, signed off, and baselined. Once it's baselined, then the requirements are frozen. So there can be changes, but it's expensive to the project, and the documents are heavy and formal like BRDs, FRDs, SRS, then
Yep.
use cases, and it's like signing a contract upfront, and the changes are like expensive when made.
Okay.
On the other hand, in agile, it's like living and breathing. Not everything is done at once, but the project evolves sprint by sprint based on the feedbacks from the different entities, and it is like it's not heavy documented. You have
Okay.
you have normal epics then in user stories.
Okay. Okay. I can attempt this answer and then you can compare, right? So, difference between the requirements, okay, between waterfall and agile. You covered most of you, whoever attempted, you covered most of the points, right? One is that it is document heavy. When you have high level requirements, detail level requirements, use cases in the waterfall side of things. Second, you have epics, user stories, acceptance criteria, and the agile side of things, right? Are they different? Are the contents of BRD, epics, user stories different, or are they the same? They are the same, right?
Yeah.
If you want to build a software, you want to build an application for a bank, whether you execute using waterfall or you execute using agile, it's the same damn thing, right? So why didn't you speak to this? That doesn't matter which I do, the requirements will remain the same. It's just the style of formatting and writing is different. Like, why was this not highlighted? Because this is such a core B understanding, right? Seasoned B understands this. That doesn't matter if I'm writing requirements in waterfall style in a BRD using DLRs and use cases, or if I'm writing requirements in using user stories or acceptance criteria format, the requirement remains the same. It's not different, right? So that was one of the key factor that was missing out, okay, in all of your answers. Another factor that was missing out in all of your answers is that I purposefully positioned the question as we, how do we write requirements in waterfall and agile? What is the difference between requirements in waterfall and agile, right? And you latched on to that we factor, and then all of you gave the answer from that perspective, right? There was no I perspective anywhere, right? The interview is about you, not about we, not about a third party, not about like best practices. It is about you yourself. So whenever a question is asked to you, make sure that you take it personally. Make sure that that is a question asked to you, and how do you do it? Yep. So the way that I would position this question is that in my career, I've written business requirements documents where I've used the format of high-level requirements decomposed into detail-level requirements, decomposed by persona decomposition or system decomposition or layer decomposition, right? Front end, back end API. And at the very end, then I have use cases, which takes us to the user journey, right? And then in those DLRs and use cases, I would write individual steps, details like UI elements and then messages, business logic for that matter. In order to kind of complement those requirements, I would also add process maps, Figma designs within the BRD itself, or within the use case itself. And then in the use case, I would have like happy path, exception path, alternate path that I would elaborate, right? Switching gears to agile, it is the same thing, right? The requirements will not change. It is just that the structure and the way that we write them are different. So we have user stories, which captures the requirement from a user's perspective. So as a person or as an end user, I want the business need and then the goal. Why do I want it? Then I have the acceptance criteria, which will essentially prove to be direction for my development and testing team or what needs to be done in this user story. And then in order to complement that user story, I would add process maps or Figma designs or anything of that sort, right? So it's the same thing. Tools used obviously are different. I would be using Confluence or Word documents if I'm doing a BRD traditionally, or I would be using Jira or any other such ticketing tools if I'm conducting an agile project. So that's the difference according to me. Yep. And I'll stop here. So in the way that I give the answer, okay, I'm starting off, I'm positioning the question, the answer such as that doesn't matter which you do, it's the same thing. Okay. Then I'm taking over waterfall where I use jargons like BRDs, HLRs, DLRs, so on and so forth. Then I'm switching gears to agile where I'm using jargons like epics and user stories and acceptance criteria and all that jazz. And then I'm terminating the answer by saying that obviously there is a difference between the tools, right? So इसमें हुआ क्या? I'm giving them so much to latch onto that I know about epics, I know about user stories, I know about Jira, I know about Confluence, I know about BRDs, I know about business cases. Okay, there are so many things I know about. पूछो क्या पूछना है. Okay. There is not a possibility of a follow-up question coming out of this answer, right? There is no information that is being left out. तो ये एक सीखना पड़ेगा आपको, right? And it is there in your interview prep sheet, okay? And it's there, and आपको पता है ये, right? This session is just to give you the platform to speak it out loud. ठीक है? Okay. Let's switch gears and ask you another question. Okay, generic question है. Anybody can answer, right? Experience, not experienced, current batch, previous batch, जो भी किसको करना है वो. As a BA, what elicitation techniques have you used, and which one is your favorite? Who wants to take it up? The question is that as a business analyst, which elicitation techniques have you used and which one is your favorite? Somebody pick it up, or I will start picking you up.
Okay, I could go. I could try it out.
Sure.
My approach to eliciting requirements for a project usually begins with some open-ended brainstorming questions sessions, and this is just to discuss ideas or high-level requirements in order to get things going. And once I kind of have some traction and have my feet on the ground, then I can narrow down the elicitation process to either more specific and targeted interview questions, or we could use system prototyping used through Figma to create mockups or any other markup tools using creating visual references and documenting these requirements and gathering this analysis over time. And
Go on.
Once I have this initial this initial process off the ground, then I usually leverage the information I have now to begin the next sequence of this project, which would be um, creating either a swimming pool diagram or a solutioning diagram to effectively um, create precise user stories and story maps.
Okay.
Sorry, I know I kind of
no,
it broke up
that's
near the end there,
no,
but
that's okay. You started off good, right? That was actually, I think that was one of the most perfect startings that I've seen, right?
Yeah.
And it is actually true. So if think about it, right? You are conducting a business case document and of a brand new project which you have no idea about. You cannot use interviews, you cannot use system prototyping because you don't know what the hell you're talking about, right?
yeah,
What are you going to do? You're going to do brainstorming with a bunch of like-minded people, like-minded being your POs, your SMEs, your directors, and so on and so forth, right? So it starts off with brainstorming. Now, out of that brainstorming sessions, you will have more decomposed topics, so to say, threads which you can kind of take those conversations off, right? And then you pick on each and every single topic. For example, in our I think in one of the projects we did, which was for like submitting those claims, no, or fraudulent claims, like from BOFNC. We had a couple of latches in terms of we need to change the PBMS, we need to change PBWS, we need to build a few new APIs, right? There are different like topics, subtopics to say. So out of those brainstorming sessions that we did, we had a list of HLRs, and then we can kind of pick each and every single HLR and then ask targeted questions, open-ended questions, iterate with system design, prototyping, refer to documents or that sort, right? With particular focus groups. So then then the elicitation sessions or the techniques would rather become interviews in this case, right? Document analysis, systems analysis, those will be the following up elicitation activities. And once those are done, and when you have refined requirements, you would have elicitation techniques like, requirements walkthrough. That is also an elicitation technique, right? You're doing a walkthrough. You can have preparing diagrams, Figma designs, and whatnot. That's also an elicitation technique. If you're in the agile side of the world, then once you have the initial brainstorm, you would have a story map ready. The story map in itself is an elicitation technique that you can use, right? So the bottom line is that as BAs, we don't use like one elicitation technique for the entire project. We use multiple. Quite oftentimes, many of them simultaneously. Many of them simultaneously with different stakeholder groups. For example, in one of my current projects, I am capturing requirements from an AML stakeholder. That stakeholder doesn't really like to come on to meetings or they don't have the time to. So the elicitation sessions with this particular group of stakeholder is just by email communications. And in email communications, if I'm going to type like paragraphs, it's not going to work out, right? So I ask them specific questions. So questionnaire becomes the elicitation technique in this sense versus one of the other groups that I'm interviewing, right? They're more chatty. They like to come into meetings that I hold up, and they're quite helpful. In that case, the elicitation technique is more or less like brainstorming sessions through and through, right? So you started off good, but obviously there was some break in between, so you need to work on that.
Yep.
But that's fine. Okay. Anybody else wants to give it a shot? Any different perspectives? Any different types of answers?
Yes, sir. I would like to take a dig. I might be wrong, but yeah.
अब
So,
सर
sir,
आप ये शुरू या might be wrong से करोगे तो फिर come on.
okay. Yeah. Sorry about
See,
that.
all right, carry on.
So, so according to me, like it depends on the project. If it's already an existing project, so definitely my elicitation starts from the existing documents, and I will go through all the documents. And if it's a new project and or a new feature has to be added, still I will go with the current state, and I will talk the relevant stakeholders as well. And also, I use so various techniques in that. And so that starts with especially I would like to do so brainstorming since all the ideas and I can see through. And if it's not possible, email is my preferred communication. And so later on, after studying from my side, I try to make a questionnaire as well, and I simply send the questionnaire. So as much as I can understand the other perspectives, and if the stakeholders so give me time, so definitely it can either be a Zoom meeting or like in-person meetings, or if I can find relevant people at one place, so maybe a focus group. And so those are the combination of techniques I used in the past, and so definitely I had very good output.
Okay, good. All right, nice. You were not wrong. Okay, let's move to one of the next topics, shall we? Okay, so before I move to this topic, I would like to know how many of you have read the Agile theory, not what was taught in the class, okay? Nothing related to our Confluence or anything that we've done. Apart from that, external reading, how many of you have read like actual Agile theory, like or Scrum theory? Anyone?
I have read.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by three amigos in Scrum? Do you know?
No, not word by word. I know the core
Okay.
like
Uh,
essence.
the
The core
product
essence.
owner, tester, and developer.
Oh yeah, in
Say
that.
that again. Say that again.
The product owner, developer, and Scrum Master.
Tester.
Scrum Master.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so three amigos. So ये इसलिए नहीं करवाया था because it's not really an interview question, right? And in majority of the cases you wouldn't see this happening. But अगर agile की बात करें, if you're simply talking about agile, there are only three persons involved. One is your scrum master, second is your product owner, third is a developer. So there is no BA, there is no tester, there is no project manager per se, right? Only these three people, and these three people are called as three amigos. Okay. And it is assumed that the Scrum Master is just going to keep the cadence going, right, of developing and testing and deploying. The product owner is going to be the person who does the job of a PO and a BA, so preparing the business cases and requirements and user stories and so on and so forth. And the developer will do the job of a BSA, of coding, of testing, deploying, so on and so forth, right? But in large scale applications and in large scale and organizations which are like multilateral, this method doesn't really work, right? So you typically will have like 7 to 11-person Scrum teams. But I just wanted to bring it up because I have a question on my list, right? Just in case if it comes to you in the interview. But like 99 point maybe 7% of the time it's not gonna come. Okay, let's ask another question in that front. Okay, who wants to talk about user story estimation or requirement estimation? What do you mean by estimation? How do you do estimation? Who does the estimation? What do you know about estimation? Who wants to take it up? I'll hint you for this. It is called a story pointing. Start speaking, whoever wants to pick it up. Okay. Abhinav, I'm going to look at you.
So
You-
wait, what is the question again?
The question is, how do you do user story estimation or a requirement estimation? Right? Estimation is figuring out how much effort and time will it take us to do this. By us, I mean, yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the user story estimation is generally is taken over by the product owner and the scrum master who do the story pointing, and it depends on how large the epic or the user story is, and depending on uh, what the method is, they might use focus sessions or different various method to story point, and then based on that, it is sent to the refinement session. I mean, the sprint. Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
about it.
Okay. Tanish, you want to pick this up?
Story estimation or like user story estimation, maybe
Say that
it's the
again.
process which is used. User story estimation,
Yes.
like process where the Scrum team collectively assesses the uh, effort and complexity
Mhm.
of a user story before it is taken into a sprint. Uh, the most widely used technique is like the planning poker one. I think it
Yep,
was
okay.
the
Yeah.
sequence. I think it was on the Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci sequence,
The
yeah. So
product owner,
you
yeah.
can instead of calling Fibonacci sequence, you can call it as planning poker. That's the term in the industry, right? So planning poker is basically what you
Oh,
use. So the 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21 is basically the numbers that you're looking at. My question is not this, right? My question is that one, how do you do it, right? Who does it? Okay. And on what basis do they do it? Okay. Now,
so
Abhinav gave
the
me an answer that it's the Scrum Master or the product owner who does it. No, right? They may be hosting the meeting, but they don't do it. ठीक है? देखो एक सीधी सी बात है. You are a contractor, right? And you know how to build a home. ठीक है? Let's assume that. Um, अगर मुझे घर बनाना है, मेरे पास पैसे, ठीक है? I'm giving you money and I'm giving you plans and I'm giving you everything, and you're supposed to build the home. Who will decide how much amount of effort and how much time will it take for us to build this home? I am the business, right? In this case, I'm the product owner. Will I decide? Will a person
it
who is a project manager decide कि इसको कितना time लगेगा? Or will the person actually doing the work decide कि इसको कितना time
it
लगेगा?
will be collective.
No,
No,
developer.
No.
negative,
So
no.
the
No, it
lead
will
The
be developer.
developer,
developers,
the developer.
Yeah.
The
the lead
developer.
developers followed by lead testers.
Always and every time it is the developers and the testers combined who give it an estimation. Okay.
Yep.
So this Fibonacci series 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, किस user story को कौन सा point मिलेगा? That will just be related to um,
Developers and testers.
developers and testers, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Okay. So keep this in mind. So the question that I ask is that, what do you mean by estimation? Who does it? How do we do it? If I'm giving an answer to this, this is how I would give it. Okay. So typically, for my user stories, we use the product backlog refinement meeting to do story estimations. And in my experience, I've used, or not I have, my teams have used planning pokers, t-shirt sizing, or $100 methods to do estimation. Planning poker being the most, taking the most market share. So what happens is that when I present a user story to my testers and developers, they usually give it a point like 1, 3, 5, 8, 13 based on their internal discussions. So they make sure that they have everything that they need to develop and test the story, and they factor in the previous complexity, their overall experiences. Has the team done this kind of an activity before or not? They factor all of this in, and then they give us a common point. So, like for example, if my devs and testers give 3 points, I simply put 3 points in their tickets and be done with it. Now, if there is a disconnect between the developer and tester, they discuss internally as to why there's a disconnect. Well, will it be 3 points or 5 points or whatever it may be? But they give me a final number. My PO or myself or my Scrum Master, we never decide on what the estimation is, right? So I take part in story point estimation, but my job is just to host the meeting and then make sure that the story has a number. And majority of the cases, even I don't do it. It's my Scrum Master who decides these things at the planning level in the sprint planning meeting. But if you have the opportunity to do this in the product backlog refinement meeting, then we take up this opportunity. Yep. Short and simple. अभी इसको 90 minutes, sorry 90 seconds खींचने का जरूरत नहीं है, right? It's very short and simple in this case. ठीक है. Okay. Now that being said, we have spent about 20-30 minutes going through this. I want to take a pause and give the platform to you guys. अगर आपको कोई question है जो आपको समझ नहीं आता है या फिर you have some doubts about, let's ask those questions now, and I'll see how I can help you with it. Anyone?
Sir, how much technicality is involved in a functional BA role? Do they ask any API related or all those questions as well?
No. In your interviews, if it's a purely functional BA role, then absolutely not. It will not be asked to you. If it's a technical BS role, which we will come to know before we apply for this position or before even you go into the interview, if it is a technical role, then yes, they may ask you questions. Now, I'll come to those API related questions later on in the stage, right? Right now, I just want to focus on the functional ones.
So, sir, the
Yeah.
knowledge nuggets that you have provided, they're very detail oriented and it really helps. So
Yeah.
by reading all that material, I think I don't have any questions regarding preparation for interview and things like that sort of matter.
Okay, good. All right. As long as we are clear on that, you're fine. Okay. If nobody has any questions, I can ask you more questions then.
My only question is about the fact that what if they present a case study to us, how to approach that one? I mean,
हाँ, yeah, they will. The case study आएगा interview में for sure. But case
Scenario
studies में,
based.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, that will be scenario based, right? Questions and answers.
No. So case
Okay.
studies, you can never have it done on spot, right? They will not give you a case study right now and ask you questions 5 minutes later. No. Case studies are always given time. In majority of the interviews, almost in all interviews, case studies will be given to you at the end of your first rounds. And then they'll give you a time of like 5 days, give or take. And then after the time frame, you will have your second round scheduled in which you will be presenting those cases to them, and then they will be asking you questions based on those cases, right? So the cases could be, let's say, for example, for Bell Canada, their typical cases range from having a sales platform, right, where they want to recommend some new products based on the category of the product that was selected at the time of checkout, so that they can be added as add-ons. They don't have this feature, and if they wanted to add this feature, what are the things that you will be considering as a BA to formulate requirements for this, right? So they don't want you to write requirements; they just want your approach, right? What will be your business analysis approach in this case? So that's the thing with business cases, sorry, case studies in interview. Okay. Any other questions, issues, concerns?
is it something asked by every company these days? Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that was traditional back in the days also. Like I'm talking about pre-pandemic, right? It was the pandemic that was a little bit disruptive to the overall industries, where things started changing, and then what the processes were in place. I remember, because these case studies are quite secretive. Like they are not, if they go out in the open. Like for example, I know a couple of case studies about Bell Canada, right? If they go out in the open, then there is no point of having these case studies because there is material out there to train for it. So these case studies are quite secretive, and they're actually excerpts from existing systems and areas in that own business, right? So before pandemic, if you talk about interviews, the case studies were on the spot. They would give you like 3 hours for a BA interview to study something that they've given you, and then come up with an approach, and then they'll ask you questions based on it, right? So BA interviews I've seen kind of going on through like one day. So you'll have like one round at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then second round roughly 4 o'clock in the evening, and in between they'll give you a case study. So that was there. So like these case studies were like hard printed, right? They would be given out to candidates at that stage. But pandemic changed a lot of things, so remote interviews became the norm. Case studies were transmitted over emails, and things happened. But now I'm seeing like things going back to normal. So expect that you are going to be called in person in the interview. But that being said, though, I have a candidate right now who has gotten an insurance job. She went for an in-person interview. She is a college fresher, right? Bare minimum 1.5 years of experience. Now, the point being that if this person can clear out in-person interviews, you guys have much more experience overall than them, right? Um, I've also had people who were from like chef backgrounds and whatnot, clearing out in-person interviews for banks. So things have happened, right? So it's not something to be afraid about, right? Think about the worst case scenario. What's gonna happen? Or what's gonna go wrong in the in-person interview? Nahi aayega, right? You will not be able to speak, and that's it. And that will be the end of it. They'll escort you outside. Khatam ho gaya baat. Rinse, repeat, go at it again in a different company. Your goal is to get a job, right? As simple as that.
Eventually, if we learn from our own mistakes, it will help us
But
maybe in second or third interview to clear it off.
ऐसा
The
ही
goal
होता है
is,
ना.
yeah, the
See,
goal is to clear the first one, but we can aim for stars
हाँ,
to reach the
but
moon.
that's how it is with anything in life, right? You try something once, you will probably horribly, not just life. I was talking about my project. I was talking to my project manager a couple of days ago, and I was worried about the state of the project that it is in right now, because I see a lot of uncertainty, and we have roughly around 123, 124 requirements, give or take. And there was a lot of uncertainty around this. And my PM said me the same thing, that, Deepak, don't worry about the outcome of the project. When I plan my projects, roughly 70 to 80% of them fail in the first MVP, right? We deliver what we can, but there are a lot of unknowns. That's how things are. And then we do a second MVP where things go straight, right? That's how things are. So if $100 million projects are being planned in this way, तो ये तो एक interview ही है, right? And the best part about that is you're not losing anything. You're simply losing that opportunity. That's it. और दूसरी आ जाएगी, you're not losing anything, है ना? तो फिर when you don't have anything to lose, डर किस बात का?
So, sir, just one follow-up question. Assume if a candidate gets rejected at Manulife after giving an interview, can they only apply after 6 months because they are
No.
banned from 6 months? Is it
No.
like that?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. There is no such thing. So if you apply to a company and if you get rejected from that company, whether it is automated or via an interview, there is no such rule, there is no such hard line that you can only apply after 6 months. You can apply the next day, the same day. You can have multiple interviews scheduled in the same company at different line of businesses and give them in the same week. Be rejected from 2 on Monday, get accepted on the 3rd on Friday. That's completely okay. There is no such rule like that.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, let's go back to these questions then. The next question I have for, no, it's an open question. Anybody can answer. The next question is about requirements traceability. What is requirements traceability according to you, and why is it important, and how do you ensure traceability in a waterfall project versus an agile project? Who wants to pick this question up? I think current batch में traceability का just एक mention किया गया था. We are just starting with traceability now. But for other batches, you know what it is. I'll give you a hint. You mention a number to the requirement like HLR01, HLR02, and then refer those HLRs to DLRs and DLRs to use cases, right? And then the traceability in Jira is automatic where you link an epic to a user story. So from that front, what does traceability mean for you as a BA?
So for a business analyst, requirements traceability basically means that when the project goes
Okay,
under
wait.
audit,
Sorry, I'll stop you right there.
okay.
No third-party perspectives, not as a business analyst, as me. What does it mean to me? Go ahead.
So according to me, it means that when a project goes under audit, whoever is conducting the audit, they can easily trace back the requirements that I have written in the business case document, high level requirements, the detail level requirements, from which state the requirements arrived from. So as a business analyst, I have to make sure that whatever interview sessions I conduct with my stakeholders or do focus group surveys, I need to make sure that I have meeting minutes, I have all the documentation, I have questions and answers of all the questions that I have asked, so that tomorrow, if the audit is conducted, the requirements can be traced to the origin that I have written, kind of a thing.
Can I take a take too?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, requirement traceability is like every requirement is accounted for. It should be fully developed, tested, and deployed. And I see it in so both ways. For number one, for the completion of the project, and the number two, for the accountability as well. And it should be from origin to end, like from forward to backward and backward to forward. And so it also accounts for all the steps and where it was originated and how it was tackled. And for me, it's like that.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so I'll simply give you one word. Okay. How to shorten this? Can we say that the requirement traceability is a manual activity of linking requirements from the point of origination to the point of delivery, meaning that it establishes a line of sight from the point of origin to the point of delivery. As simple as that. So that you can trace from where a requirement was origined and what test case tested it. That's called as forward traceability. And then you can also trace a issue or a test case back to the origin point from where did it origin, right? That's reverse traceability. As simple as that. So if somebody asks me, Deepak, tell me what do you mean by requirements traceability and what does it mean to you as a BA and how do you ensure it? I'm simply going to say that it is a manual process of attaching requirements as you decompose them, as you elicit them from the point of origin to the final test case or the delivery point, so that there is a clear line of sight from the point of origin of a requirement to the test case that tested and validated it. And that's it. That establishes forward traceability, at the same time establishes reverse traceability. In waterfall, it is manual, right? So you give each and every requirement a number and you mention your high level requirements to your detail level requirements, and high level requirements to your use cases, right? Use cases, HRRs and DLRs are tied to your system requirements. System requirements will be tied to the development activities. That will be tied to test cases, right? At the end of the day. And in Jira, if you're using an agile project, it is quite automatic where you create an epic and then attach that epic to all the user stories that you are tagging to that epic. So epic becomes a parent, user stories becomes a child. Each and every test cases that will test a user story are also attached to that user story. So it's just a matter of dragging and dropping. That's it, right? So it's automatic in Jira versus in Waterfall, it's manual. I'm simply going to put it at that. There is no need for an example. There is no need for a star method or a situation here. It's simple. They're asking for my understanding of what requirements traceability is, right?
सर इसमें अकाउंटेबिलिटी भी जो मेंशन कर सकते हैं कि मतलब
हाँ कर सकते हो, right? That's also one of the benefits of it. You can have accountability. For example, what Devant said, right? That you have if an audit is initiated on a project, it gives an idea about the continuous linking of all the activities and not just requirements, right? It's like it's linking everything. It is linking your tasks. It is linking all the other activities that the project team does. So it is basically an kind of an accountability view of sorts, which gives an idea about why was a particular task done. Because you have to understand, behind each and every requirement and test case and whatever you have, there is actually time and money being spent, right? So it also establishes accountability in a way where it allows us to view why was a particular task done, what was the need for it, where did it originate from, so on and so forth, right? It does allow us to do accountability, but that is not really the purpose of traceability. The purpose is to link, is to make sure that every requirement that was originated has been developed and has been tested via some test case. Okay, and every test case that we had are tracing back to a point of origin. So there is nothing that was not a part of a requirement of a project that was built accidentally or on purpose, or was just added as a scope to this project, right? At the same time, to make sure there are no orphans, right? So if you have orphan test cases, orphan user stories that cannot be tied back to an epic, meaning that you have issues, you're taking up scope that was not originally intended for the project, right? So the whole purpose of traceability is this. Now accountability is an added benefit. Okay, good. Let's jump on to other questions. Open-ended question for all my agile BAs. Who defines the definition of ready and who defines the definition of done? And at the same time, can you highlight a few examples of what definition of ready and definition of done is, or the criteria contains?
Can I go?
Yes, sir, by all means.
All right. So definition of done is a criteria that establishes what contains in a particular user story, and all the conditions needs to be fulfilled in order to call that user story a definition of ready. So when we talk about definition of ready, it means the developers has built the product, the testers has completed testing of the product that developers has built, and now the product is shippable and ready to go live in the production. Once that is done, the definition of done is established. By that, we take that user story out from the sprint backlog, uh, So that is called as definition of done, whereas in definition of ready, we just point the user stories. It contains the acceptance criteria, the preconditions, post conditions, and what all it needs for developers and testers to build a particular product. It is usually done by the Scrum Masters and product owner, to, in my opinion.
What do you mean, Eddie? What do you mean, in your opinion? You are a BA.
Uh,
ये कहाँ से घुसाया? In my opinion. ये नया है भाई. Don't say this in the interview, in my opinion. Okay. So, all right. Okay. Fair enough. So, okay. So definition of ready and definition of done. There are criterias, right? देखो एक चीज है एक आपको one thing that you'll have to learn and ये practice से आएगा and I think ये practice आएगा as you give more interviews is that you need to learn how to explain in a more tactical fashion. Okay. And in order to do that, you'll have to gain thorough understanding of this subject per se. What is definition of ready and what is definition of done? Okay. I mean, there are a list of criterias. So मैं उसको इस तरीके से भी बोल सकता हूँ कि definition of ready and definition of done are a list of criteria which are prepared by a team. The definition of ready ensures that a story has everything it needs to be put into a sprint, blah blah blah. ठीक है खींच सकता हूँ उसको लंबा. Or I can use more tactical approach where I can say that the DOR and DODs are nothing but entry criteria and exit criteria of a user story. A user story before moving into a sprint has to meet all criteria present in the DOR, and a user story being marked done or coming out of a sprint should meet all the criteria established in the DOD, definition of done. Now, DOR criteria are something like the user story has to have a statement, a 3-part sentence, established acceptance criteria, should be presented by the entire team or with the entire team. It should be pointed, it should be PO approved, it should be assigned to a sprint, right? So all of those criteria are DORs, and DOD has a few criteria like it should be code reviewed, it should be peer reviewed by developers, it should be tested, it should be accepted by the PO, right? And then only the PO can mark it done. Now, these criteria are pretty common. They are established by the individual teams as a whole. But some criteria, like the story having 3-part sentence and acceptance criteria and being having code review or peer review, they are basically standard, right? So we start off these DORs and DODs with those basic criteria, and we keep adding to those criteria as the project and the team itself evolves over the period of time. That's it, right? No unnecessary information, connective verbiage, जब लंबा खींचने की जरूरत नहीं है उसको, ठीक है? So be tactical if you can, okay? And ये practice से आ जाएगा. कुछ चीज आप सीधा सा ये सेशन में से भी उठा सकते हो, right? There are past recordings also that I've shared, so you can pick that up. बना बनाया पाथ है यार, बना बनाए आंसर्स है, रिकॉर्डिंग्स है, फिर क्यों खुद का इन्वेंट कर रहे हो? ठीक है, वही आंसर का पूरा उठा लो एग्जर्प्ट एंड देन से इट इन योर फैशन. ठीक है, मेरे को एक बात बताओ, एक क्वेश्चन है टू माय बीएस. What is the difference between a product backlog and a business requirements document? Difference between a product backlog and a business requirements document. What is it?
Both are same, I think.
They just have different methodologies.
Both. One person says both are same. I think second person says that they are used in different methodologies.
Yeah,
So
so one
they
is
are
iterative,
okay.
one is
Continue, continue,
iterative.
sir. Okay, so they are both like collection of requirements, but they are just in formatted, like they are just in different format. BRD is heavily documented at first and used in waterfall, and it captures all the business requirements, and one goes upfront from objective scopes, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and assumptions and constraints and everything. And on the other hand, product backlog in Agile is equivalent of a BRD, but it's prioritized list of everything, like user stories, epics, technical tasks, and whatnot.
Okay, good.
Yes, one thing I would like to add.
Yeah.
So in product backlog, it's more evolving, and changes can be made, and it's more adaptive,
Yeah.
and it's more iterative. And so BRD, it's more like you have captured all the requirements, and only after that we start the work. And it's very hard to change it. It can be, but it's very hard to change that.
Okay.
And it will be costly too.
So I agree with everything except for the statement saying that it's hard to change it. Okay. This is a myth. It is not hard to change a BRD. Okay. You just don't go into the BRD and change it, right? So if a BRD is written, for example, अभी एक मेरा project चल रहा है, I've completed a, so to say, requirements document. It's not really a BRD, but considered as a requirement package. I'm going to give that package to a vendor, and that will be signed off by the vendor. Okay. So once two parties are agreeing on a set of requirements that this is what we are going to build, उसके बाद अगर मैं उसमें जाके change करूँ तो it is not good on my part, right? Because it was signed off. अगर उस document को change करना है तो what is our method? Our method is to initiate something called as a CR, a change request, which is a mini version of a BRD, which will just consist of the change that is proposed. That will be shared with the vendors, and then you sign it off, right? So it is not difficult. It is just a different method. Okay.
But like that changes the expense as well, right? It adds some
Yeah, so it does.
time.
So since it is a top-down method where requirements are done first, solution is done second, implementation is done third. If you are proposing a CR at the implementation state, yes, it will have cascading impacts. But that is the reason why most waterfall projects do not entertain CRs in the duration of the project lifecycle. If you are going to take up CRs, once the entire waterfall project will be done as is, and then you will start a mini waterfall session, which will be like 3 months, 4 months at a stretch, depending on the scope. That will take up all the CRs, right? The CRs will itself combined will have differences in solutions, so on and so forth. So yes, you are paying more money for the 3-4 months of time. But अगर ऐसे देखा जाए तो it is not really more expensive than Agile, right? Because as you said, Agile is iterative. So if it took us like 6 months to build a waterfall project and then 3 months worth of CR, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to take us the same time, even if you're doing with Agile, right? The difference is that we won't have to wait until the first initial 6 months and then the 3 months to get a final product. We can simply have MVPs divided in 3 months worth of chunk and then ship the product out, right? Okay, good. So good attempt at this. I think you guys are clear on this front. Tanisha, I have a question for you. Let's do a rapid fire round, okay? Quick answers, no 90-second answers of sorts. Tanisha, I have a question for you. What size teams have you worked with in your Agile projects?
So I've worked in a team of like 8 to 10 people in my Agile project, and it always depends on different projects and the scale of the project, and there might be different number of people in the group.
Okay. Devansh, question for you. What is sprint velocity? Okay, time is up. Tanish, same question to you. What is sprint velocity?
Uh,
The speed at which the
like
sprint is
basically
going.
it, yeah, like every single sprint is going, like it will complete in what time?
Wrong. The number of story points completed in a sprint is sprint velocity. Okay. So if you are
Okay.
completing like, let's say you have 10 stories, and if you have 40 points across 10 stories, right? One is 3 points, one is 5 points, one is 8 point, one is 1 point, ऐसे करके the total points are like 40. And if you complete 38, your sprint velocity is 38, not 40. Okay.
Okay.
ठीक है. Good. Let's go ahead and ask you a more question. Harjeet sir, what is a persona in Agile?
So persona is from the point of view of the user, the actor, like who will be using the product, and so what his her needs are, or it can be a system too.
Okay, all right, good. Question for Tanish. What is your biggest weakness as a BA?
So my biggest weakness as a BA is getting too detailed in writing HLRs and DLRs. And while in Agile is like being too descriptive about while writing in the acceptance criterias and all, which will like in total extends the time of the total sprint.
Okay. Question for you, Devansh. Walk me through the list of components of a BRD, just the table of contents of a BRD.
I'll start with the scope of the project, followed by writing the high-level requirements. Once that is done and dusted, I'll move on to the detail level requirements. Once that is done, I'll add the diagrams, the solutioning, the current state, the future state as is to be, the process map, the UML diagrams.
Yep.
Uh,
Okay, that's good. Question. Second. Okay. Question for Harjeet sir. As a BA, what kind of UML diagrams do you create typically?
I'm answer weak in this. I haven't done UML.
No worries, sir. Same question for you, Tanish. What kind of UML diagrams do you create as a BA?
I'll divide them like into structural diagrams and behavioral diagrams. Structural diagrams like class diagrams, which shows the structures and relationships between the components. Behavioral diagrams, it will show the use cases, like what do you say? Like the process flow or the flow.
like how the user is interacting to the
Use
system.
case diagrams, swim lane diagrams, and functional diagrams.
UML is different, I think. No, sir.
Use case diagram falls under
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it's okay. Allowed it.
Okay.
Okay. Question for Devansh. In a project, how frequently do you communicate with your stakeholders?
It is more frequent than not, especially when I'm writing requirements, doing elicitation. When I'm starting the project, it is usually an hour with the product owner or with the required stakeholders on consistent basis, be it after 2-3 days. Because when I'll start writing my requirements for a particular topic, if I'm having interview questions, I'll keep on asking them until I have my requirements refined. So it can be recurring weekly or between 2 or 3 days.
Okay, good. Question for Harjeet sir.
Yeah.
ये rapid fire में नहीं आएगा. Give me 1 second.
Sir, ask easy one.
Sorry?
Ask the easy one.
ठीक है सर, आपके लिए easy. What kind of requirements prioritization techniques have you used?
Yeah, so
चलो ये तो easy है.
yeah, so I had used
It's a rapid fire. It's just list me it. That's it. Nothing else.
I'm confused between
Prioritization, Moscow, right? Must have, could have, should have, won't have. High, medium, low in Jira. That's it.
Yeah, Moscow. Yeah, I was
interview
confused
में
between.
interview मत करियो सर. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. मैं elicitation और उसमें जो
Exactly.
confuse है prioritization.
कोई बात नहीं सर. Karan, are you able to
अब
speak?
जैसे UML, I was thinking about the markup language, unified markup language. Use cases,
No.
yeah, Abhinav is right, like comes.
Yes, sir,
It's
Karan
about the
is saying-
behavior of the system.
Abhinav का नाम mention मैं उसको पूछूंगा. Abhinav, list me all the tools that you use as a BA, like all of them.
Jira, Confluence, Visio, OneNote,
Figma.
Figma, for wireframes, and Microsoft Office full suite.
SharePoint.
ठीक है. Okay.
Zoom.
Devansh, question for you. You are running an agile project. You want to review a bunch of user stories with your team. Which meeting will you use to do this?
Can you repeat the question?
You are conducting an agile project. You want to review a user story with your team, with your developers and testers. Which meeting will you do to use this? Which meeting will you use to do this?
Requirements, um, walkthrough session.
The
Chat
grooming
session.
session
Chat
or
उसका
session.
backlog
अलग product
refinement?
backlog refinement like कितना बार
हाँ,
कहेगा
Oh
तुम?
नहीं एक तो
shit.
दो.
Fuck.
Backlog.
ठीक है, हाँ गालियां मत बोलो अभी, ठीक है. All right, ठीक है. Let's talk about
Karan, sir. Karan is free.
Karan free है?
Karan is free.
Very nice. किधर है करण? करण को लेके आओ मार्केट में.
Karan,
where are you,
તો પાછો
sir?
3 માં ચાલુ છે. બીજા દાવત નહીં આવતો.
Okay, ठीक है. All right. Let's take a look at Danish, question for you. What's the basic difference between non-functional requirements and functional requirements?
So non-functional and functional requirements, right?
Yeah.
So functional requirement is when we decide the specific, if we take an example in like in a professional setup, then a functional requirement is what kind of like how the page should look, what are the details in the page we filled up in the login page, and the non-functional would be like the load up time for the page, like how soon it should get load up.
ठीक है, उसको simply इसमें बोल सकता है functional requirements are definitely must have to be met for a project to be completed. Non-functional requirements are performance related.
Behavior
okay.
and
Sorry?
I mean, functional requirements talks about the behavior of the system, right?
Yes, functional requirements talks about what the system needs to do. Non-functional requirements will talk about how well does
The
the system
How well
performance,
does the system do?
scalability.
Okay, it's
and
always performance related. Okay. ठीक है. Question for Abhinav. What do you mean by UAT and what exactly is UAT?
UAT is user acceptance testing. It is manual testing after the sprint cycle is done, where an execution plan is made, and there are customers or users who use the product, and based on that, they give you output.
Okay, no, good. Okay, let's take a look at question for Devansh. What is a data elements dictionary or a data dictionary?
So it is a document in which all the key terms of data is mentioned with the abbreviation and the full form.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay.
Like the field names and description, data types and all.
Yep, that's fair. Yep. Let's talk about so the bots are here. लेकिन ठीक है, I think this is good. Okay, I think we can keep the session until this. We have spent about hour and a half, I guess, doing this. We थोड़ा और खींचोगे तो फिर it's gonna start affecting people in different ways. So, how do you feel about this? कैसा लगा ये?
Very good, sir.
Yeah, this was really helpful.
I feel like we need more sessions to get used to this.
Harjeet sir is like जो पहले मुंह में आया, very good sir, बढ़िया था sir.
ये मेरे को सच में अच्छा लगा, दिल से आया है.
Okay.
You know, like I'm sorry, but you know, like in that Dhol movie, that there's what's the name? What should it's like? ये नाम रखते हैं दुकान का. It's like all of a sudden कि ये नाम रखते हैं.
Yeah.
It's like बहुत बढ़िया है sir, बहुत बढ़िया. खत्म करो.
ठीक है. All right, good. Okay, as long as this provided some sort of value, है ना? That was the whole point कि तुम लोग थोड़ा slack कर रहे थे इंटरव्यू में, right? And I want like एक mock interview schedule नहीं किया किसी ने, like शर्मजनक बात है ये, right? So I wanted to ice break. That was the whole point of this session कि you know अपने दिमाग में मत रखा करो कि kind of will I be doing good or bad or this that the other thing, right? देखो एक किसी महापुरुष ने बोला था ये, कौन था वो मैं उसको बाद में बताऊंगा, बट उसने बोला था ये कि the act of commission can be put right by your subordinates, by your peers, by people around you, but an act of omission cannot be put right because वो किया ही नहीं किया, right? अगर कुछ चीज कमिट करते हो, आधा कुछ भी टूटा फूटा कैसे भी कमिट करो, right? कमिट करो, कर लो अपना काम, and then it can be put right. फीडबैक मिलेगा, you will improve and whatnot. लेकिन अगर इंटरव्यू शेड्यूल ही नहीं करोगे, there is nothing to give feedback on, right? तो फिर आप अंदर अंदर घूमते रहोगे दिमाग में कि kind of am I doing it right, wrong, this or the other thing, right? So commit to it as much as you can, right? टूटा फूटा इंटरव्यू सही, doesn't matter.
Sir, the
So
Deepak, I
goal,
scheduled for today.
हाँ तो
sir, the
इसलिए
goal
मैंने
was
किया,
not
that's the
to.
reason why I did.
So, sir, the goal was not to waste your time as well, and while making sure that we prepare to our level best, so that it's because we know you are busy, conducting multiple batches and so things like that. So, yeah.
अच्छा नहीं मैं busy हूँ but it's fine, we can always schedule, right? I mean, you don't have to
सर
don't have to worry about
अभी
my
जो
schedule.
अभी जो इंटरव्यू ये जो अगर मॉकअप शेड्यूल करना है क्योंकि आज काफी जो क्लैरिटी हो गई है तो वो जो 1-to-1 होगा आपके साथ वो आपको जो कैसे मैसेज कर देंगे जैसे मान लीजिए मेरे को अगर अगले संडे या जब भी आप फ्री
So best course of action is that you message in the group, right? And like you have the capability of messaging in the group, right? So start up a poll, give me a couple of times, right? I'll vote onto it, and then even better, other people will also vote onto it, right? It is better we do this group calls because I know you may want like one-to-one call, that's fine.
नो
लेकिन
नो आई
ग्रुप
एम जस्ट
कॉल में ये होता है कि एक देखो अभी काइंड ऑफ अगर मैं एक क्वेश्चन पूछूं राइट आपको एक फैक्टर रहेगा कि काइंड ऑफ देयर आर टू मेनी पीपल लिसनिंग राइट तो आपको वो भी डर रहेगा कि काइंड ऑफ मैं क्या बोलूंगा एंड व्हाट विल पीपल थिंक अबाउट मी डजंट मैटर हु यू आर ये इंसान को होता है बट दिस इज एक्चुअली बाय डिजाइन इट्स गुड राइट बिकॉज इंटरव्यू में यू विल हैव अ पैनल ऑफ 4-5 पीपल तो दिस इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द वेज टू काइंड ऑफ लेट गो ऑफ दैट फियर सो टू से है ना ओके
या
लेट्स स्टार्ट